Good morning, everyone. This is Maureen Bumanglag from Luzon Elementary School, Master Teacher 1 from the Division of Rizal. I am here to discuss to you about learning gaps, types, examples, and tips on how are we going to solve them. So before we proceed, let's discuss first about learning gap. So learning gap, this is a discrepancy between what a student has learned. It is also what a student was expected to learn at specific points in their education. It is also a disparity between what a student has actually mastered and what is expected at their particular grade level. This is also can be significant and cause major learning losses or academic setbacks. So meaning learning gap for the student education, it is built on previous concept like building blocks. If you are missing foundation blocks at the bottom, you can keep building. Therefore, a student has learning gaps. They can keep building and learning more complex concepts. It is very important to build the learner's knowledge depends on their level. So there are different types of learning gaps. The first one is the knowledge gap, skills gap, motivation gap, environmental gap, and the communication gap. Let's discuss first the knowledge gap. Students were lacking proper information. They have no knowledge at all. It is a barrier to student success. They will not succeed. They will not succeed if they have no knowledge. Students are not exposed to the correct information. So, with this, how are we going to identify knowledge gap? Let's answer this question. Is it reasonable to think that the child could be proficient in this area without practice? Yes or no? If your answer is no, you have to look into different gaps because this one is likely not a knowledge related. But if your answer is yes, you have a knowledge gap on your hands. An easy way to eliminate knowledge to ensure your learner is provided with correct material they need to learn. Next one is the skill gap. It's all about students have not had the practice necessary to develop common skills. It stands in the way of students achieving their learning goals. It is also a skill gap. It is a lack of practice and mastery of necessary skills. So this is identifying skill gap. Let's go back to the first question. Is it reasonable to think that a child could be proficient without practice? Yes or no? If your answer is yes, or if your answer is no, then the skills gap is likely the culprit. We all know that practice makes perfect. Let's ensure that the learners has the time and resources they need to hone their skills and succeed in their academic journey. The next one is the communication gaps. It is a deficit in effective communication. It is also a student experience breakdown in communication. So here are some examples might include the instructions are incorrect, the instructions were poorly articulated or vague, the student misinterpreted the instructions, and these instructions are not possible. For the communication gap, proper learning cannot occur if a poor communication between the learner and the teacher are not good. So therefore, we should provide a good directions to our learners so that they can follow our instructions carefully. So identifying communication gap. Address this kind of learning gap by asking your learners if they clearly understand the teacher's directions. Every time we are providing them a directions, we follow a question. Do you understand? Did you understand? We are asking those questions so that we are making sure if they are going to follow the directions we are provided. So we have to ask them, do they know what they need to be doing in the class? Is there a room for misinterpretation? We have to guide our learners through giving clear instructions to follow. They should really understand the directions we have provided for them, especially the instructions. The next one, we have the environmental gaps. Students lack a supportive learning environment. A student does not have access to a conducive learning environment. Here are some examples. Unexpected learning roadblocks, missing materials, resources, or technology. There are no directions and unexpected cost. Student surroundings can become a barrier to effective learning if their environment are not conducive. So how are we going to identify environmental gaps? If you suspect your learner has an environment gap that's affecting their learning, we have to evaluate their surroundings. Are there any specific situational aspects that could be impacting their learning experience? We have to make sure that the learning environment was conducive to our learner. Next one is the motivation gaps. This is all about students lack the motivation to advance their knowledge or skills. If students know what they need to do and how to do it, yet they still don't. A student lacks the desire to learn the concepts. This includes they are distracted or unfocused because they are not motivated. They see the bigger picture or it doesn't make sense to them because they are not interested in making an effort. They may be anxious or concerned about change. They don't use to doing things differently and don't see the point of unlearning old ways. So with this, here are some ideas on how are we going to motivate our learners. Let's make it fun. Let them play. Let them enjoy while they are learning. And of course, we have to use rewards to motivate them. Let us give stars for those primary learners. We can give them candies, chocolates, or whatever rewards for them to motivate. Also, teach time management skills. Sometimes when they are playing or when we are giving them activities, we put some timers so that they will be excited to finish their task on time. Adjust the curriculum. We have to we have to adapt or we have to adjust our curriculum depends on their capacity. Eliminate possible distractions, and of course, rethink the teaching method. If the teaching method is not effective, we have to look for another teaching strategies. And of course, be consistent. Always give learners a good motivation. So here are some tips to solve learning gaps. First one is normalize getting help. So how are we going to normalize getting help? So creating a space where students feel comfortable sharing their concerns is an important step in closing learning gaps. Next one is we have to form an authentic connections. How are we going to form authentic connections with our learners? So part of creating environment is with our student, we have to let them feel comfortable. Coming to you is forming a connection with them. It is very essential to cultivate a classroom community. It is very essential to feel connected to their teacher and peers. We have to schedule some team buildings, group activities, or we have to schedule bonding exercises so that students will also feel comfortable asking questions with their group or help from one another. Next one, we have used the classroom technology, especially nowadays. Children are now prone using technology. This will make learning more interactive and engaging for the students. And the last one, make it part of your professional development, of course. Not only the students, also as a teacher. Because it is said, learning never stops for a teacher. The more you learn about learning gaps, the better you will be addressing them. You can easily solve those problems of your learners if you know how are you going to solve the learning gaps, or if you are going to continue your learning when it comes to professional development. So before I end up my topic, let me share with you this. Knowledge is the eye of desire and can become the pilot of the soul by will to run. That would be all. Thank you so much for listening.